one of the things that makes the Notre Dame game day experience unique is the size of our student body. People think that because we're Notre Dame, we've had a historic program, that we have 40,000 undergraduate students. We have 8,000 undergraduate students. We have a couple thousand grad students. So our student population in whole is about 14,000. It's a very intimate campus. And we've got these iconic things on our campus that make it special. And without getting overly dramatic, for many people, this is on their bucket list, especially if they were raised Catholic. We don't have athletic dorms and we don't have a Greek system. So there's kind of these things that are ingrained in Notre Dame that make it a very welcoming and inviting experience. You know, our volunteer usher program, we have ushers that have worked here forever and they didn't go to school here. They most likely maybe didn't have a child that went to school here, but there's just this passion for it. Working at Disney and trying to bring in what Notre Dame specifically was looking for. Disney is grounded in such awesome principles of hospitality. After safety being their number one priority, everything focuses on that guest experience so that no guest is ever disappointed. The element of Disney magic and whatnot, which was not a direct translation between a theme park and a football stadium, but in some ways there were those similarities. And one of them to me that was most compelling was that on a day at Disneyland, the population swells in that park, sometimes upwards of 50,000 people at Disneyland. And so you have this place that starts out in the morning dormant, and then as the day goes on, you have this population swell where everybody needs all of these different facilities as part of their infrastructure, whether it's parking, restrooms, so on and so forth. So the same thing happens here on a game day. We start with an empty stadium. Our stadium holds 80,000. 3,400 of those seats I manage up in our premium area. And you kind of watch the day build. And ultimately, both Disney's goal and my goal is that when a guest arrives, that they've had a seamless experience. And when they leave, regardless of whether we win or lose, obviously it's always terrific when we win, and we've been very fortunate with that. But that they leave and they don't feel like that they were hassled, that they got their money's worth. And they left with a little bit of that escape from reality. The space I'm in right now, you'll see behind me the numbers on the wood. That was our original stadium benches. And when our stadium was remodeled to go with a more weather-conducive bench, we kept all of the old stadium wood and we used it to decorate the spaces. So it's ingrained in different picture frames that we've made out of the wood. As part of the Disney Touches, we have a place called Irish Woodworks on campus that produces things from the wood. Billy Joel came in concert and we were able to make a piano bench out of the stadium wood as a gift to him. Was trying to find a way to replicate the Disney cloisonne pens that people collect. So for the first several seasons, we had little coins made out of the stadium wood. It had the Notre Dame logo on one side, and then the other side was the date and who we were playing. And we would just kind of give those out as a surprise and delight if you talk to somebody who was a first-time visitor or a young child who had never been to a football game before. And it gave the staff a chance to have interactions with people. And again, I think that takes me back to a previous question you asked, like what makes Notre Dame special? And I think we're just trying to make it an experience that they don't forget, especially if it's a first-time experience. Many of our season ticket holders are so proud to bring guests with them, and they'll come up and say, I've got so-and-so here from, Florida, and they've never been to a Notre Dame game before, and we love to share it. So I think that's a great testament. It's interesting to talk about changes in Notre Dame hospitality in the last 5 years because we didn't have any hospitality until 2017. So with the COVID year in there, we're like 6 years into our program. So basically Notre Dame Stadium had the bowl that held like 80,000 plus, and we had a press box. So if we were ever going to entertain donors or special invited guests, we had a small banquet area that was behind the area that the press actually called the game from. And so it held like 200 people. It was just banquet round tables. There was no atmosphere. And guests would, come up, grab something to eat. You couldn't see the field from there. So they would return to their seats in the bowl. So when this project was undertaken to open in 2017, it's a really cool concept. And if you haven't been here before, I'd love to invite any of the members to come and see it. So basically, we attached 3 different buildings to our existing stadium. So we have on the east side and the west side, we have 9 floors of brand new buildings that were built to look like the original stadium and attached to the stadium. And then on our south end zone, we have our large video board that was built to attach to the south end. The way the funds were raised is that the donors were informed that all of these spaces would not be used just for football. So floors 1 through 6 we have our student recreation center, digital media center, our counseling department, our music program. all of those floors house student-facing programs. And then floors 7 through 9 are dedicated to football, but we use the space in a way that we don't have individual suites. So we have a large common communal area, and the students get to use that for functions, dances, conferences. So initially, this concept of a space that was maybe only going to be used, 7 times a year for football home games turned into a space that was going to be used, 300 out of 365 days a year for students. And we've stayed very true to that. It makes it really challenging for the staff that has to support it, but it's a very, very unique program. So currently, I'm in one of our smaller spaces. So when I mentioned that we don't have individual suites for our premium seat holders, so I have roughly 850 accounts. Some people have 2 season tickets, some have 4, so on and so forth. So I have 3,400 people that split the east and west side of the stadium. We refer to the west side as our home side, the east is the visitor side, but all of them are Notre Dame season ticket holders. And we replicate the hospitality on both sides of the stadium, so everybody's getting an equal experience. So instead of individual suites, they have their seat that faces the field, obviously, and then they come inside through glass doors into a big communal living room area. And that's where we have all of our food service, which is served buffet style. And then we have bars at each end of the wings that we serve beer and wine. The price structure that we have set up includes all food and beverage. So there's no financial transactions that take place on game day in our club space. As I reflect on going forward, like the next 5 years, the next 10 years, and I think about, okay, what do we do to keep improving the experience, and then also be prepared for what is changing in that consumer dynamic. And that's hard without having the crystal ball. I mean, none of us could have foreseen what happened during COVID. I think when I worry about the landscape in 5 years, one of the things that comes to mind is that we were very confident in what we were selling people. So we sold a 20-year term. So we don't use the term seat license, but they made an initial investment that went to support these spaces that I talked about that were, student focused. So our guests committed to a 20-year term. We were 99% sold out the first year. We're in our renewal process right now, and we are operating at about a 95% renewal. So for me, I'm in a great situation. I mean, is everybody completely happy? Absolutely not. But we make a point to survey after every game, every Monday morning after a home game. We send a short survey out. Collect that data. When I think of the 5-year stretch that's coming up, is that it's hard to keep setting that bar higher. And I'm not even talking about like really tying into why people buy season tickets. They're avid football fans. I mean, we can't lose sight of that either, that people are passionate about what's happening down on that field. And there's this kind of struggle that I go through sometimes when in my head I'm thinking, okay, I need to like Disneyfy the experience so that they're still happy 5 years from now.